If you're actively seeking ways to build your mental toughness, navigate life transitions with grace, or simply find inspiration to keep moving forward, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking. I am Cat, and this is my co-host Yvette. We're here today, and we're going to unpack a few things around the evil demon of emotion, which is shame. Shame. It's a big thing. It's a big thing that's really making a bit of a comeback, I'm noticing, in social media particularly, and it's probably never really gone away, but it seems to have increased, I don't know, tenfold since everybody's on the internet. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone can say something to people. You're no longer insulated or protected these days. So, yeah, shame is, to my mind, a completely pointless emotion. What do you think of it?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, it plays no positive role in anyone's life. And by shaming other people as well, like especially if we talk about what happens on social media.
Yeah.
Shaming other people is just a mechanism of making that person who's doing the shaming feel important. And the effect that it can have on people in people's lives is actually horrendous. You know, it can actually really push people over the edge, shame.
Yes.
And it really does, I kind of look at it from the perspective of, who are you to shame someone else? Like, what makes you think that you have the right to put someone down or shame someone into believing that there's something wrong with them? And I think it's a real, and we've spoken about this previously when we've spoken about domestic violence and, people in the workplace that like to control situations. And it's a controlling mechanism. It's an abuse mechanism. And and it does seem to be on the rise a lot, I think, due to the cancel culture stuff as well.
Yeah.
And that in itself is like, again, yes, if someone has done something horrendous, yes, you have the right not to want to actually have anything to do with that person. And you can choose not to follow them on social media and things like that.
Yep.
But to actually really cancel someone out totally, out of society, and that's what you're trying to do, is you're cancelling them out of society. It's like an old bloody medieval mechanism that the church used to do, or that small villages used to do to make someone feel shameful about something that was irrelevant.
Shunning. It's like shunning, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. And it's just so old.
Yeah.
As we were talking about with that mindset and the mentality about it, there is nothing about it at all that is positive in any sense.
No, there's not. It's interesting, when I worked for the Department of Justice, they do training on, it's really important, the difference between shame and guilt. And guilt is actually can be quite a positive emotion. If you've broken the law, if you've done something wrong or you've hurt somebody, it's good to feel guilt because it makes you sit with those feelings and go, oh, actually, you know what, I did the wrong thing. And that can be quite a galvanizing call to action for behavioral and mindset change, where you say, all right, well, I'm not going to do that anymore because that was really bad behavior. Similarly, in interpersonal relationships, whatever it is that you're doing, you've done the wrong thing. I mean, I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And I've felt guilty about that. And I think, well, I'm not going to do that again, if I've misstepped or said the wrong thing. But shame, on the other hand, is, it's not I did the wrong thing. It's I am wrong. There's something wrong with me. And what that does to people is it makes them stagnate. It makes them curl up in a little ball and go inside they internalize this awful, there's something wrong with me. I can't change. Maybe this is all I am. And then all those other horrible thoughts come up and just make them feel completely powerless to change their situation. And so whenever you're shaming somebody, hopefully people are strong enough not to internalize that. But I think a lot of the time people do internalize it. Like you're saying, anthropologically, we used to use it. Centuries ago when we all lived in villages, we had to get along, and you had to, unfortunately, probably do what you were told, and otherwise you would be shamed and shunned and then probably starve to death because you can't.
Yeah, correct. Because you can't. Yeah, you leave the village life. That's right.
But and it's outdated now.
I mean, there was probably a reason around that, because there's, there may have been not a lot of rules in place and things like that when we talk about, policing and things. We've got a lot of policing today, but back then they didn't yeah, probably didn't have so much of that. I don't know. And then you've got, well, we're going to set in these local village rules
Yeah.
to abide by, and if you actually break those, then this is what will happen to you.
Yeah.
But even if I look at um, society as a whole, like all the way throughout society, there's always been, and when we're talking about through the ages,
Mm.
there's always been an element of shaming
Yeah.
others. And women really did seem to get the raw end of the deal a
Mm.
lot.
Fuck yeah.
Men could get away with a lot more. Women could they weren't allowed to
Well, still
do
do.
anywhere near as much as the men. And if
Mm.
they did, then they were totally shamed and shunned. And, it
Mm.
was just ridiculous with how women were treated. And I kind of feel as if that's kind of um, flipping on its side a little bit in today's age because of the Me Too movement and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But also, there's a young male generation now that are suffering from
Yeah.
shame,
Yeah.
and that's causing a lot of suicide and things like that. So it,
Mm.
it is quite a detrimental pattern
Yeah.
um, that people can internalize too much. It becomes a self-sabotaging behavior,
Mm.
and it can really prevent you from achieving what it is that you want in your life, or even expressing yourself because you're so concerned about what others are going to think. And so
Yeah.
it ends up becoming, you internalize it, but then you're also constantly looking for validation externally
Yeah. And that's
for
the
you to be able to take that next step, you
yeah.
know?
And shame often will turn into despair. And then once you're into despair, that's when your suicide risks go right up because
Yeah.
despair and apathy are the two things that absolutely, you know, put you in that space. Yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, women do cop a lot of it. And I think there's a lot of shame still around, say, domestic violence. If you're in a domestic violence relationship, because that doesn't discriminate. You can be in,
Male or female. Yeah.
yeah, male or female, and you can be in it doesn't discriminate between classes. You can be quite a wealthy household. Everything looks really good on the surface. Behind closed doors, it's an absolute nightmare of a place to
Yeah.
live. So yeah, domestic violence doesn't really discriminate, or there's no sort of pattern to show that it's more prevalent in poverty versus wealth. It's one of those things.
Yeah. I
And
would actually say, in fact, in some cases, I don't know about today, but, definitely if we look at the history of people being shamed, um, we mentioned about the Victoria era as well. That's another time
yeah,
when it was quite prevalent
yeah,
during that era. And that if you did not follow the exact rules of the rich up that upper echelon,
yeah.
and you were a part of that society, that you could easily be
Oh
shamed
yeah.
and shunned
God,
and all of those types of things for doing the simplest thing.
don't show your
Um,
ankles to a man when you're an
oh
unmarried.
my what?
That's it.
Shocking.
You're no good now. You can't get married. No one will.
Exactly, exactly. And then you were treated literally, you were treated like,
Yeah.
God, rotting flesh. Don't
Yeah,
go
yeah.
near,
You're not
these.
worth anything. You're no good. You're
Yeah,
not worth anything. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's really important. I see a lot of shaming going on, and I see a lot of people getting embarrassed and being ashamed. And I think it prevents. I think when you go on a personal growth journey, this stuff will come up. This stuff comes up, doesn't it? Like
It does.
you get
It
these
does.
things. Mm.
And I kind of, I've used that analogy before about the personal growth. When you go onto the personal growth path and you start to do quite a bit of work on yourself, and you're doing anything from skilling yourself up or what have you. But
Mm.
like if we're talking about personal growth from ch- um, changing your belief systems and working on yourself internally, that itself, it's quite a lot of work that you unpack
Mm.
in that space.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of, and it can take quite a while, especially, depending on how much stuff you're carrying, how much baggage you're actually carrying.
Yeah.
And when you start the personal growth journey, I kind of look at it going, you're a muddy glass of water, and
Yes.
down the bottom of that muddy glass is a ton of sediment, a
Yep.
whole heap of sediment. And that sediment is all that old programming, all of the doubts, the fears, the shame, everything. Well, the I'm not good enough, that's
Yeah.
all down there. But every time you do some work on yourself
Mm.
and you unpack something, you're actually putting in a bit of clear water,
Yep.
and then that the murkiness starts to get less and less. But one thing that happens though is when you put that drop of water in there, or you pour some water in there, it stirs that sediment.
Yeah. That's exactly
And
right.
then that stuff comes up to the surface. And so
Mm.
all of a sudden, when you start working on yourself, you'll find that old stuff that you thought you may have forgotten about
Yep.
comes up, and then you've got to deal with it. And you don't have to actually deal with it from the perspective of taking yourself back there and spiraling down,
No, 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 no.
but recognizing it,
Mm,
seeing it for what it is,
mm.
forgiving if you need to. And sometimes it's about forgiving yourself for treating yourself that way.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
accepting that
then,
behavior.
being aware around it, because when you, with awareness, you then know how you can start to work on that pattern of behavior.
Well, the opposite of shame, I think, is self-acceptance.
Mm.
Because you're not ashamed. You're like, okay, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. I don't look fabulous all the time. I'm not a superhuman person. This is just me. This is who I
Yeah.
am. And I think once you start accepting all those parts of yourself and you start going, okay, well, I'm a work in progress and I'm going to do little bits each day and I'm going to do something to improve my perception of how things are, that personal growth stuff. It gives you almost like you're saying, the muddy water, the sediment. You think, "Oh, well, just let it go. It's nothing to be ashamed of anymore. I can reset that narrative. I can look at things and go, well, I didn't have control over a lot of the things, a lot of situations I was in, or I didn't have the wisdom to cope with it better at that time, and I do
Yeah.
now. It's okay." And I think that's really important because I think but you can really hold yourself back. Shame can make people really hold themselves back, or fear of being shamed ties in with that fear of failure. And it's I think it's so powerful to say to yourself, shame is a pointless emotion. It serves absolutely no purpose to help me in any way, shape, or form. It stagnates me. It just makes me feel like shit. And I'm just not going to engage in it anymore. And it's a
Yeah.
nice thing. Like if anyone tries then to shame you or embarrass you, you can just say, I'm just not buying into your shame shit.
Yeah, pretty
And it's
much.
and it's really interesting when you don't buy into shame, people kind of look at you sideways and go, "Oh my
Oh,
god,
yeah, yeah, that
she's
that
not
didn't work.
she's not
Yeah.
conforming. What do we do now?
Hmm.
Oh, I've run out of tools. Because direct, honest communication, yeah, no, I can't do that."
So, if we think about shame, what has been your experience in your life around shame?
I was shamed from the moment I was born, basically. I had because my mother was married 5 times, my dad was married twice. I
Yeah,
bumped
yeah.
between pillar to post, different families, like I spent time living with my mother and various stepfathers, my father and all my step family and my stepbrothers and sisters and my stepmother, and they all ganged up and bullied, and I didn't fit because I was the different kid. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was just this reactive little ping pong ball that was just going ding, 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 ding from one place to the next. And the narrative that I got from every single one of those places, except for my mother, I will say, was "you're shit, you're not good enough, you're this, you're that, blah, 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 blah," whatever, all the big list of flaws, which I bought into for many years because I was so confused. I didn't know where the hell I fit. I didn't know who I was. It really affected my growth in myself. And I lived with a lot of shame for many, many years. And
And how did the shame play out for you?
I would quit a lot of things.
Right.
I would quit a lot of things. So I would start something like, you know, uh, studying or doing something. Go right. I've got dreams. I really want to make these things happen. And then I would start, and then something would happen, and I would just think, oh my god, I can't do that. They're right. Look, there again. There's that evidence again that I'm shit, and that's what I would buy into. And it took
Okay.
me a long time to do, and a lot of counselling to get past that, because it's almost like you've got to have the guts to turn around and say no. I don't believe you. And you're saying, no, I don't believe everyone in my family who's ever said, you're just no good from the outset. I actually don't know how I didn't end up in the gutter with a needle in my arm. I'm actually really proud of that.
Yeah, and
Because,
unfortunately, that can happen for some people as they
yeah, yeah,
can
I'm really
spiral
proud of
down
that.
that much.
And
Yeah,
even now, I haven't spoken to that side of the family for a long time because I don't really get anything out of those interactions, but it's always putting me down, same sort of shit. And nowadays, I just go, fuck off. I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested. I don't care about your point of view. It's not important to me anymore because
yeah,
they're never going to change. I can't make them change their perception of me from a child when I was 6, even though I'm now 51. And I don't live in the same country as them. So I'm like, okay, you believe, you do you, and I'll do
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Bye bye now. Bye bye.
So it really, I mean, I think that's the other thing too, is when we think of shame and we look at it and we go, well, what does it break itself down into? It's that not good enough.
Yeah.
You end up believing into that inner voice of I'm not good enough and I'm not enough.
There's something wrong with
And
me. I can't
yeah,
do it.
and that's where majority of negative beliefs, they all stem from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And shame would be one of them. It's probably one of the most nasty ones, but it's one of them. And it's really about unpacking that and letting those things go and
Yeah.
realizing that you are enough
Yeah.
because and I've mentioned this in a few occasions, especially when we spoke about the personal growth things earlier
Mm.
on. You know, we're here to evolve and we're here to express.
Yep.
And you have these unique qualities within you that you have the capability to express and to experience this life.
Mm.
And it's a real I'm going to use the word, it's a real shame. And this is the only time that shame should be used. The real shame that people don't step into their uniqueness and, you know,
Yes.
the power of who you are within you.
Yep.
It's no one has the right to pull you down.
That's
No
right.
one.
Yep. But it's very difficult for some people to get there, and it is a growth process to get your head around that and to go, well, at the end of the day, if you want to engage in that behavior, that's up to you, but I don't want any part of it. And it's actually, yeah, it's pretty gross. I lose respect for people that like to shame others all the time because I think, why would you do that? It's sort of pointless. It is a
Yeah.
controlling,
Well, it's prevalent on social media. You know, it's all over the place
a
on
way of
social
life.
media.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is a way of life that
Yeah.
we do. And
And
it's all
unfortunately, if we,
body.
you know, no names being said here, but there are certain world leaders who love doing it as well. And it's just people will look up to different leadership, whether that leadership is their, role models, etc. Whether
Yeah.
that is their parents, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a boss at work. People look up to their work, their role models, and leadership in any form of way you are a role model. And
Yeah.
so I think you've got to be really mindful when you are in any sort of public
Mm,
light,
mm.
um, and public life at all. You've got to be really mindful of not shaming people because you're actually teaching people out there in the public that this is okay
Oh,
behavior.
yeah.
You
And
know,
shaming is bullying.
it is. It's
Shaming is
another
bullying.
form of bullying, totally.
Just and
And
it's
it's not okay. It's not okay behavior because no one at all has the right to put somebody else down. You can have your opinion
yeah,
about someone, but fucking hell, keep your opinions to yourself. You don't
yeah,
need to go, make it public to everybody because all that does is shows how you are from as an individual and what behavioral patterns and belief systems that you have playing out in your
yeah,
life that are
on
causing
you.
you to have to actually behave in that manner.
Yeah, why are you
So,
doing it? Why are you
yeah,
wasting your energy on that shit?
yeah,
I mean, I've been in office environments where I've listened to or not listened to, but I've overheard, like I've been sitting there eating my lunch and I've overheard two other women talking about a woman that used to work there and they were laughing because they would say things like, "Do you remember when, she came in that time and she had dry shampoo in her hair and she hadn't brushed it in?" Ha ha ha. And they're like little pathetic things. I thought to myself when I was new in this office, I thought, why wouldn't you just take that woman aside and go, "Hey, sister girl, got a little bit of thing here. I just sort of let
yeah,
you know."
yeah,
Why wouldn't you
exactly.
just do that?
That would be the respectful thing to do.
I think it's just the normal human decency thing to do.
Yeah.
Because you do not. I've said it before. We always say it. You don't make your own light shine brighter by dimming the glow of others, do you?
No, no.
And I don't know why we all think it's really cool to follow pricks. Like, sorry,
People
but
like drama. They like drama.
why
And
is that? I don't get that.
well, I think it comes back to that if you can focus on someone else's drama or focus on someone else's wrong or what you believe that they've done wrong,
Yeah.
or look at the way that they look or look at the way that they dress, it's
Hmm.
that whole thing of making you feel better about yourself.
Yeah. I
And
just
that's
don't.
all
Yeah.
it is. It's about you going on a power trip and feeling better about yourself. And it does nothing to assist a situation
No.
except to make you, for a very small second, feel better about yourself. But you also know when you behave in that manner, 'cause, well, at least I do. I know that if I say something, just if I'm really angry or what have you,
Yeah.
and I say something that's quite
Yeah.
nasty, and then I feel it inside of myself and I think,
Yeah.
shit, that
Oh
feels
yeah.
horrible.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
having to talk
Sometimes
that way about someone feels horrible.
we all gob
So
off sometimes, like, not
yeah,
saying we've got to be perfect, but yeah, why would you
exactly.
do it as a
But I
habit?
would look at it and go, if you are surrounding yourself with people who behave in that manner,
Yeah,
then go find a new set of friends
yeah,
because that is not really a great group of people to hang out with. You
no.
want you want people to lift you up, not pull you down.
Yeah,
And if
I
those
was
people
yeah.
happen to be your family that are pulling
Mhm.
you down, then as soon as you can, get the fuck out of there, you know? Like, as soon
Yeah,
as you're able to, get out of there. Now, I'm not saying go and be homeless or stuff like that. That's wrong. Take advantage of the situation until you can actually set yourself up and leave.
yeah, get free.
Okay?
And just do
It's like
weddings, birthdays, Christmas, send a card, show
yeah,
face again. That's all you need to do. You're not obliged to
exactly.
be living in the back pocket of the
No,
people that gave
you don't
birth to
need to
you.
be around people like that.
No,
And I'm talking there from experience, right? I
same.
was raised in a domestic violence upbringing. Um, my mother would love to shame us, especially me. Don't know why. You know, she would just yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go down the story of all of that. But what it comes down to was I went okay. I'm here until I'm able to leave, and then as soon
Mm,
as I leave, that's it. I can actually I can decide who I want in my life, and I can actually have the family within my friends
yep,
who are going to lift me up, not pull me down,
yep.
and make sure you surround yourself with people like that. So as soon as you're able to see that environment for what it is,
Mm.
but make sure you've always got those people around you that do lift you up, that do empower you, that inspire you.
Funny, isn't it? Yeah, and and just refuse to be that way. I do you wanna hear my escape story from when I left home?
Go for it.
I was 15. My stepfather, who is now dead, rang me from work because I came home from school and I was told that I had to wash and clean up the kitchen and everything. I was like, "Oh, for God's sake," because I already did loads of chores, and I was like, "I've got to feed the chooks and do all this other stuff. Now you want me to clean up the kitchen and do all this other thing." And I kind of got the shits, and I told my mother no. The next thing, I got a call from my stepdad, and he was really threatening me on the phone, and he was saying, "You better do what I say, kid." He used to call me the kid, which I hated. And I was like, "Why? What's gonna happen?" Like, he's really threatening, intimidating on the phone. He goes, "Just you wait till I get home." Like, that was how he would talk to me, and I was like, "Fucking Jesus, what's he gonna do to me?" So, do you know what? Something inside me snapped, and I just went, "That's it. I'm not staying. I'm not waiting." Because 'cause he'd given me loads of beatings. I was like, "I'm not sticking around for this shit." I went and jumped on my horse. I packed all the money. I had money from my Christmas money. I stuck it in a satchel on my back, which was my school bag. I jumped on my horse and I thought I won't put the saddle on him because I don't know how long we've got to go and I don't want to tire him. I rode that horse bareback from my house to the local township where I had a friend that had grey horses in a paddock. And she said, "Yeah, chuck your horse in the paddock," because I knew that no one would know it was my horse except
Yeah.
me. And then her mother drove me into town. And then I walked myself to the police station and I said, "Hello, I'm reporting in. I don't want to go back. My stepfather's going to beat me again and I've had enough." And that was
At
what I
least you
did.
went to the police station.
I went to the police station and they were like, "Fuck." I mean, this was when I was 15. This is 35
Yeah.
years ago in country Queensland in Maryborough. And I got this really cool sergeant who was a lovely guy. And I just said, "I'm not going back there." And he's like, "Well, what's going on?" I said, "He beats me. He beats my mother. He threatens us with guns and machetes. He's a Vietnam and a Beirut war veteran. He drinks all the time. He's always belting me and threatening me. And I just live in fear and I just can't do it anymore." And he said, "Okay." And then he got my
So where did
parents.
you end up going after that then?
Well, I actually went to a women's shelter for a short
Yeah.
time, and then I moved back to England to stay with my dad for a time. So I was, and I lived over there for a few years. And then finally, when my mum's marriage to this guy was breaking down, I moved back over to Australia, and yeah, he basically we got rid of him. He started getting drunk one night and started trying to have a go, but I'd been doing martial arts and I was super
Yeah.
fit. And he started saying, "We're going to go the fisticuffs," and I was like, "Let's go," because I'm 6 foot tall, I'm twice as fit as you, and I'll kick seven colours of shit out of you. And he went,
Yeah.
okay." And I was like, "Right, so maybe you need to sober up and pull your fucking head in." And that
Yeah.
was how, I had to face that down, which was an awful situation for an 18-year-old girl to do, but I did it because I
Mm.
felt that it was important to do. So, and again, he used to shame me a lot and talk down to me and tell me that I was crap and all the rest of it. And for many years, I felt like I just had to conform because I had to be there for my mother, who had battered women's syndrome and couldn't get out of it. But eventually I just went, I can't do this anymore. I'm not internalizing this garbage. This is not my story. This is their story.
Correct. And you're not married to him, and
That's right.
unfortunately, because as a kid, you have no choice but to be in that
Yeah,
environment.
that's
Um,
right.
but yeah, if you're able to go and you're able to get the support, you
Well, I had no idea where I would go. I ended up in a
yeah,
house with another stranger woman, and I was just paying my way and working and going to school. And eventually, at the end of the year, I went and moved back to England for a while. So, I took a massive risk, but
yeah,
I didn't know what was in front of me, but I knew that if I stayed, I was just going to get a beating again. This is the guy that had walked
yeah,
up behind me and knocked me out in the past. And I thought, I'm just not doing this anymore. I've had it. I reached my limit.
yeah.
You know?
And that's fair enough. So
Yeah.
when you left and obviously as you got older, and you mentioned earlier on about doing counselling and
Yeah.
doing quite a bit of work on that, what was some of the stuff that you had to unpack?
Oh, a lot of it was to do with my relationship with my mum. So I was
Mhm.
very angry with my mother for a long, long time because she'd stayed with this awfully abusive man, and she continued to stay with him for a long time after I left. And of course, that kind of a relationship, it only destroys over time.
Yeah,
So I was furious with my mum for two reasons: one, that she'd put me in that position, and two, that she continued to stay in that position and with that awful man, not understanding, of course, all of the dynamics that she was reliving because of what had happened to her in her
yeah,
childhood. So
yeah.
she'd internalized the shame and was doing all that stuff, and was terribly traumatized from her own experiences. So,
And I think exactly what you've just said there. So that's what usually happens, that when people shame others, it's because they've gone through
yeah,
stuff themselves, and they're actually just basically deflecting all of their stuff out. And there's a saying out there, hurt people,
yeah,
and
project, yeah,
that's basically what happens. And that's
yeah,
how I see it when people do shame others. I
mm,
actually look at them and I feel sorry for them,
yeah,
because I look at them and I think, what is your stuff? What's the
yeah,
pattern going on in you?
yeah.
Where is this coming from? Why you must be so hurt that you feel the need to actually get off on pulling someone else down and making someone else feel like shit because you want to feel better than them.
Because you need
You
to.
know?
I
So
think
what
it's
is really
gutless.
playing out?
I think it's gutless as well,
Mm,
because I have to say, when you've got stuff, and we've all got stuff, it takes a bit of guts to take that journey inside. Like, it is a big deal to do the personal growth
right,
and to
massive. Yeah.
it's massive. I mean, that's the thing. That's why a lot of people don't do it, because it's intimidating, it's daunting. What everyone forgets is that on the other end of it, it's exhilarating and it sets you free. That's the good part about it. But at the start, you're like, oh my God, this is so heavy. This is so hard. And I think a lot of people are too gutless to do that, and
Yeah,
so
there's
that's why they
definitely an
shame.
avoidance of it.
They shame you. They like
Yeah.
to shame others and push back on you when you're struggling because, like you say, it makes them feel better, and they think, "Oh, well, I don't have to deal with my shit." That's probably not even a conscious thought, but it's just a strategy that they use because it makes them feel better.
Yeah. And so I kind of look at it from the perspective of going, don't buy into it. And some people go, oh, that's easy to say, because I'll take it on. But really, it's their stuff. And you've got
Mm,
to look at it and realize it's their stuff. And
yeah.
you mentioned it earlier on. You can't control other people's behavior,
No.
but you can definitely control your own. And you can also control your own thoughts and what you choose to internalize and
Yeah.
what you choose to let go.
Yep.
So, and that's where you step into your power,
Yep.
is realizing and looking at people and going, you want to keep behaving that way, you keep behaving that way, but I'm choosing not to. I'm choosing
Yeah.
and I'm also choosing not to take on your baggage, because literally that's what it is. You're taking on someone else's baggage. And to tell you what, every time you take on someone else's baggage, it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier and
Oh,
heavier. And then
yes.
you end up having all this stuff on you that's none of your baggage, but it's everybody else's that you're
Yeah.
putting on your shoulders.
And that's
So
when you become a
it's,
people
you know,
pleaser
yeah,
and you're knackered. You've got
yeah,
absolutely no energy left for yourself. You've got nothing left in the tank. And you can't even enjoy your own life then. Stuff that. Yeah.
yeah.
I think women are told to be this nurturing, accepting, gentle, loving bollocks. Okay. And okay, I am loving and gentle and nurturing to the people I love and want to nurture. But those people are in my inner circle. And, one of the things that really got me through, I suppose, when I was going through a lot of therapy, and I had to really think this a lot, was it's their journey. It's
Mm,
their journey. I've got to let
yeah,
them get on with their thing. If that's their
correct.
journey, that's their choice, that's their dream, that's how
Yeah,
they want to live their life. And I think it's really key to understand that, yeah, we do get lumped together with a lot of people that we look at and think, okay, you're not my cup of tea, but I have to tolerate you for 8 hours a day. So that's fine. I'll do that. But if they start shaming you because you're different to them, then you draw the line in the sand and say, well, I'm not interested in anything you've got to say, I'm
yeah.
afraid.
Well, the thing with it, and you know, again, you said this earlier on, as you start working on yourself and you start to appreciate who you are, that's almost like armor. So if you look at it like that you've got this armor, yeah, and that's what personal growth does, is because you've got all that self-respect and appreciation.
Mm, mm,
And you start to understand, I suppose, a little bit more about how you tick and how you
yeah.
function. And then in that happening, when you do that and you unpack your stuff, and then you start to realize that other people are pretty much going through the same sort of shit. And that means you're able to understand them a bit better as well. So you don't
Yeah.
get caught up in their stuff because you can see where it's coming from.
Be bothered with it. It's just not worth my
Yeah, but
time.
you can also see where it's coming from. You
Mm,
look at it and
mm,
you go, well, I know why you're behaving that way. Yeah, I'm not going to buy into it, but I know
mm.
exactly why you're behaving that way. And that is why, well, I actually feel sorry for you.
Yeah. I recently had an experience where I was working for a day with a person, and they said to me, I sort of said, "Oh, how's it like working here?" And they said, "Well, I don't like the boss. I really hate the boss." I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, been here a long time." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "So how do you manage that then?" And they said, "Well, I just listen to what they've got to say. I nod and shake my and go, yeah, 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 and then I go and do what I want anyway." I said, "Oh, wow, that's okay." And she goes, "So yeah, I'd recommend that you take that approach." And I said, "It's not really my approach." She goes, "Well, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, I would sort of go, well, how about we discuss this and we look at it coming from this angle and that angle and maybe try and do it this way, or can we try this way?" And she goes, "Why would you bother doing that with a narcissist?" Like she was calling our boss a
Yeah.
narcissist. And I just went, "Is he? I don't know if he is." And she goes, "Yeah, yeah, no, that's totally what he is." She goes, he's just an idiot. And, don't bother even. And I thought, why would you be in a workplace? Like, I think she'd worked there 8 years or something. I thought, why would you stick there for that long, working in that space with people that you absolutely didn't respect and hated
Mhm.
and that you were quite happy to sit and lie to on a daily basis? Why would you do that? And
Mm.
then she was kind of sort of saying to me, "Well, I think your approach is sort of stupid. It's so pointless." And I was like, "Hmm, okay."
Who's the
'Cause
narcissist? But
yeah.
anyway, talking about narcissism though, I think people label too many people with that.
Oh, it's such an
It's
overused term.
yeah, it's such it's like, oh, that person just because you don't agree with them, oh, they're a
Yeah,
narcissist.
they're a
All right,
narcissist.
narcissism is a really, really it's a horrendous
Personality disorder.
it's a
It's a
horrendous
personality
behavioural
disorder.
pattern, and you know it when you're in it.
Yeah, 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 it's totally different. And
Yeah.
saying that you're not going to buy into labels and shaming and garbage that people give you because you're comfortable in yourself is not narcissism.
No, it's not
It's
narcissism at all.
just it's just saying, "I'm gonna not do that."
Yeah. Yeah. But as I said, it bounces off of you, and that's the power of unpacking your own shit, yeah,
Yeah.
and letting it go is you get a lot more insight, as I said, not
Mm,
just into yourself, but also into people's behavior in general, because we all pretty much have similar patterns,
yeah.
and you get this amazing insight, and I think part of me going on to when I started doing personal growth work was similar to you. It was to let go of some of the trauma stuff that happened to me as a kid, and
Mm,
to be able to do a lot of forgiveness, but also forgiving myself because I did. I also carried some shame,
yeah,
and we talk about guilt versus shame. I would say sometimes we probably confuse guilt
yeah.
and think it's guilt when it's actually shame playing
No,
out.
I'd agree.
And,
I'd agree. Mm,
where like I felt that I had to keep a relationship going with my family because we're told in society that it's important to,
yep,
treat your parents well, treat them with respect, regardless
yep,
of how they treat you. You
yep.
are to treat them with respect and you are to love them because they are your blood and all that type of stuff. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
until I started, similar to you, I went to a counselor and all that type, did a lot of work through the counsellor stuff. Then I started doing my own work. But with the counsellor, she made a statement to me where she kind of said, just because they're your parents, they don't have to be people you like. They don't have to be your best
Yeah.
friends. And that was it was like, "Oh, wow, really? They
Yeah.
don't?" You know? And it was almost like she gave me permission to go, "You don't
Yes.
have to like them."
Yeah.
And I was
You
like,
don't
"Well."
actively have to,
Yeah,
there's a real difference between
yeah,
actively going after people and making their life a misery and then just also stepping away and
taking a
going, "I'll
step
have
back,
minimal
exactly. And
contact.
that's
Thank you."
exactly what I did. I kinda went, "I just need to," for
Yep.
my own sanity,
Sanity.
really, was to take a step back and just work on me and let go of stuff and heal and do all those types of things. And so
Yep.
initially it was about healing. It was all about
Mm.
healing. And then through that process, I started to fall in love with understanding how my mind worked and how my emotions played out in different
Yeah.
things. And then I started practicing some of the techniques that I was getting taught, and it was just like,
Mhm.
wow, this stuff's pretty amazing, and it does work. It
Yeah.
does really, really work.
Really
And
works.
utilizing meditation every day so I could connect within myself and be
Mm.
grounded within myself and really start to appreciate and respect myself. And then as that did start to build and start to develop over time, I started getting a fascination with how other people ticked and,
Yeah.
like, how do they
Yeah.
work, that type of thing. And then realizing, well, we actually are all very similar. you
Yeah.
know, and then doing the coaching and everything like that. But the reason why I say that is because that I suppose taking that path of personal growth, that even though initially it was around healing and
Mm.
letting go of some of those feelings of shame and guilt and all of that type of stuff, it morphed into something bigger than that, which
Yeah.
was starting to realize the importance of personal work
Absolutely.
and
And
starting to
being
realize
able to
the
give someone a
impact
hand up.
that it was having in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How I showed up to the world. Yeah.
Yeah, you become less reactive, because you're not carrying that shame. So people can say whatever they want to you and you just go, "Okay," you know,
Well, it's also the boundaries. You start to get very clear on boundaries, what you are willing
what you
to
will and
put
won't
up with and what
tolerate.
you're not. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. That's right. And I think it makes you a nicer person,
I think so
actually.
because you're more
Yeah.
self-aware. And as I
Yeah.
said, you also are aware of why people behave in certain
Mm.
ways as well. And so again, you choose not to take on their stuff. You go, you can keep
Yeah.
that. That's all yours.
Yeah. And you don't want to rip people down or give people a hard time or cause trouble or drama because it's just such a waste of energy. It's exhausting.
Oh,
And I want to put my energy into good stuff, you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
interesting things and not that shit. Yeah.
I think
So
it'd be such a different place if people actually treated people, human beings, with respect just because they are another human being.
just because they're another human being, not because they
Yeah.
can do anything for you
No.
or because they've got anything you want. That's actually the definition of integrity.
Yeah.
Treating another human being with decency that can do absolutely nothing for you. You're just doing it because, whatever. Like,
Well, they're
why
another
not?
human being. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have feelings.
Yeah.
They have their own doubts, they have their own fears, they have, all of that type of stuff. I don't wanna add to that. I'd much
No.
prefer to have that person feel inspired or
Mm.
happy or that you bring a little bit of spark into
Yeah.
their life, even if it's smiling at the cashier chick when you're walking through the supermarket,
Yeah.
you know? It's
Yeah,
simple
it's
little
funny. I
things.
took the dog for a walk this morning and I said good morning. I counted. I said good morning to 18 people
There you
and
go.
smiled at them.
Yeah.
And 3 of them just looked at me like I was a freak
Yeah,
and went,
like, "Who are you?"
stormed past with their head down. I'm like,
And
anyway,
and that's how I like to see it, you kind of look at it and you go, "How do you feel when someone says hello to you when they walk past?" You
yeah,
automatically you pick up
hello,
and you
good
smile back
morning.
and you go,
Yeah,
"Hi," and then you walk
exactly.
away, and for a brief second there, you feel a little bit
Oh,
chirpy, that's what
got
it
some
does for
faith in the
you.
human race again. Yeah,
It changes your energy, you
yeah,
just kinda go, "Ooh,
yep,
yeah, I feel good
yep.
now."
Sucking
And
out those good mornings.
that's just someone smiling at you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what what would it be like? Oh gosh, I remember a long, long time ago now. Um, this is when I was doing coaching a long time ago, and I was following up with a client to find out whether she was going to, just confirming our appointment.
Yep.
And she was waiting for a train to,
Oh,
she's just left work and she was waiting for a train to go
yeah,
home. And she, I rang her and I just said to her, "How are you going? It's really great to speak to you. Just confirming our appointment. And by the way, I'm really, really looking forward to sitting down and having a chat, because we
Yeah.
actually developed a good
Yeah.
relationship through the coaching side of things." And I could tell she sounded a bit down. And then by the end of the phone call, she was, perked up a bit.
Perked up a bit.
And then I found out, like when she came into the session, and this is years later, when we did develop a friendship, she said to me, "That time, Yvette, when you actually contacted me, she said you were so nice on the phone, and she goes, and it was poignant because I was seriously thinking of stepping off the platform in front of the train."
Oh my God.
And I
You
was
give me
like, "Holy
goosebumps.
shit!"
It.
I did not
Yeah.
know that at the time, that that's what I was doing. But just because of how, the kindness that I was showing her on the phone
Mm,
made
mm.
her go, "No."
Okay. I've got some hope. I don't
Yeah.
have to despair. There's
But you
something else.
don't know. The thing about it is you don't
Mm,
know
that's really
how much
powerful.
you can impact someone
Yeah.
for good or bad. And
Yeah.
my preference is impact them for good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. You've
your words
got
can make such a difference. Your smile, like you walking past the people today, just smiling at them, that may have picked up someone's day, for
Yeah.
the entire day. They may
Yeah.
have been on a bit of a downer when they woke up, and your smile made them go, "Thank you
Morning.
for that.
Yeah,
That's helped me
nice.
for the rest of the day." So you
Exactly.
just don't know how impactful you can actually be.
No. And I think we see this in, like you said, the incredible rise in suicides. Horrendous. Horrendous. I mean, we've got stories in the news of mothers with 9 and 10-year-old children and sons saying, I didn't know that I knew he was struggling at school. I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah,
It's just horrible. I think we really need to teach each other, teach our kids, talk about, raise awareness and go, shaming is pointless. It
it
achieves
is totally
absolutely
pointless.
nothing. Achieves absolutely nothing positive. Nothing good can come from it. Let's not
It's
do it.
poison. It's actually
It
poison.
is
That's what
poison.
it, yeah.
It's a horrible way to carry on in. And I mean, I think we got somewhere around not fat shaming. That's become a thing. Thank
Oh,
goodness.
it
That's
still
been a,
happens though. Still
yeah, it
happens.
still does happen.
Mm.
But it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? That
Yeah, it
change,
has. It
you know.
has.
But
Yeah,
but yeah, let's just not do it.
I think so. I totally agree.
Let's say we're not doing shaming anymore. It is a redundant behavior, and that's it. Done. We're cancelling shaming.
Well, yeah, let's cancel. If we're going to cancel anything, cancel shaming.
Let's
I
cancel
was going to
shaming.
say, how about we give yourself an action for the day of seeing how many people you can smile to. Like
Yeah.
put a smile on their face, or just
Say
say
something
hello.
nice.
Just
Say
acknowledge
something
them.
nice.
Yeah, say
Yeah.
something nice, and see
Yep.
how you feel at the end of the day when you actually do that as
Oh
well.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's something else that's really interesting. Yeah, if you're dog tired at the end of the day, maybe you've been barking and biting too much, you know?
Yeah.
Let's try
So
a bit the other
let's
way.
turn that around and
Turn it
see how
around.
many people you can actually,
Give a little
smile
lift.
at and say hello to and give a lift. Exactly right.
Sprinkle a bit of happiness dust. You never know
Yeah.
what like you said, you changed that woman's decision that day. That's incredibly
Yeah.
powerful. You just don't
Yeah.
know what's gonna happen.
Exactly.
Mm.
So I think on that note,
Yes. Mm.
thank you for listening, guys. And
Yes.
seriously, do that as an action. See how you go. I'd love to hear back how you went and what basically you experienced and how you felt at the end of it as well after,
Yeah.
acknowledging some people with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
It'd be really
That with
good.
good energy.
Yeah. If you like what we heard today, please subscribe to our channel or even follow us on our Facebook podcast page at the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast. You'll find us there. Love to have you as part of our community. And until next time, remember to think beautifully and live brilliantly. Ciao.
Bye.
We'd like to say a huge thank you to our incredible audience for your continued support. Our mission is to ignite your spark, empowering you to be a beacon of light for others. We'd love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions that you would like answered in future episodes or just want to share some insights, connect with us on our Facebook community page. If you're looking for additional resources, go to our website. You'll find the link below. And remember, the absolute best way to help us grow is to share this episode with your friends and family and to subscribe to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast. So until next time, think beautifully and live brilliantly.